What up, y'all? This is your girl, Coach Nequa T on the beat, and we are now back with another episode on the Spacious podcast where healing meets transparency and faith meets mental health. And on today's episode, we are wrapping it up, putting a bow tie on our Show Yourself Grace series. Okay. Now, in the beginning, just to give a little recap, we talked about how ego blocks seeing the grace, basically, how pride can block us from even getting close to the grace. And then we talked about showing yourself grace in correction, walking through those different emotions, such as like guilt and shame that make us feel all types of things when we getting corrected. And then we talked about showing yourself grace in learning. We walked through the different reflection pieces and the different emotions that comes up when we feel like when we're going through that learning process, basically. And then we talked about showing yourself grace and growing. We talked about the difference between learning and the growing process. Okay. We talked about how in growing, growth requires the pricking, the pruning. Growth is not performance, growth is not beating yourself up or taking yourself down the self sabotage arena or the lane, rather. And today we are wrapping up today's episode by talking about showing yourself grace and live. Ooh, vocals off. Vocals off. Should have had my tea today, but it's okay. So we are talking about showing yourself grace and live, folks. So what does that mean? And when I thought about this, when I actually made out this series, I've been going through this whole process of understanding what it actually means to show myself grace. Not only am I talking to it to y'all, I'm actually living through it as we speak. And I wanted to get some insight or get another perspective of what that actually means to show yourself grace and live. And of course, I had to ask my girl Kiana because, she gave some great insight of what that actually means. So shout out to her. Shout out to you. Thank you. So, what does that mean actually? One of the points was that perfectionism is something that comes up. And I can relate to that in so many ways. And probably you too, you can relate to that perfectionist piece that comes up and kind of blocks you away from living in the grace, following the grace, being led by the grace. Perfectionism comes from a long line of even down to our childhood of why we want it to be perfect. And that's a question that you should ask yourself, like, why did you feel the need to be perfect growing up to the point where in your mind you created this whole perfectionist type of mindset that you have to get everything right in order for everything to work out accordingly and go to plan and you can live your best life. For me, I can say that I felt like I had to go through the process of, that perfectionism root actually started when I was a child. Just thinking back of how growing up, I wanted to be perfect, to just feel accepted or just have that type of love or that applause from people that I really cared about. Especially when it comes to my parents and maybe you too. You felt like you, in order to be seen or have some type of attention, you had to get something right. You know how parents are. They we love our parents, but some of the things it was just like, if you get this grade or if you do this, then hey, you get all the praise. If you get outstanding, get straight A's, and you do well in school, you make sure you keep your mind off them boys and in them books, then you get all the praise. And a lot of times it can either work for the good for us or it can work against us in many cases. And as we grow up, we can easily fall into this whole works mentality. like feeling like I gotta hustle to feel or be praised or feel like I'm doing good or feel appreciated. It's like I gotta hustle for it. I feel like I always gotta earn for appreciation or earn to feel loved by others that we center ourselves around on a daily basis. And when we do that, are you really living? Is the answer. Like, are is the question. Like, are you really allowing yourself to live? Are you really allowing yourself to not be on edge? Because when you're working from that type of mentality, you're on edge all the time. You feel like this, that, and the third have to be lined up in order for life to look good or for life to go smoothly for you. And honestly, when you living in the grace, that is not how it works. I Something that I've been learning is like you have to you have to in order to live in the grace, you have to understand that living in the grace, even in your mess, even when you not looking your best or not feeling your best or feel like you're not even sometimes doing your best, even when you actually are doing your best. Let that sink in. Um, Over the weekend, I attended this event for domestic violence, and I had the honor of being like one of the speakers there. And the other lady that was the speaker there, she talked about owning your stuff, like owning your mess. And it made me think about how a lot of times we do have a hard time owning up to our stories, owning up to the stuff that we been through, because we want to be seen perfect in the other person's eye, or we want to be appear perfect to people. And when you're trying to live up to a certain persona, it can cause you to not live. It can cause you to always feel like, well, I got to make sure I look like this in order to be this or be seen as this. And it just shows how much it can cause you to fall back and not be in a place, or even block yourself from being vulnerable, block yourself from truly being transparent and understanding what your needs are, what your wants are, because you're trying to appease for basically people. And that, my friend, is called people pleasing. I like to call it people pleasing syndrome. And as a recovering people pleaser myself, um, it's not the life that you want to live up to, because in the end you see life more less enjoyable than worth living a lot of times. Let's be honest. And that is how you can even find yourself um moving on a track of being filled with anxiety. You're not getting stuff done because you feel like stuff have to be done a certain way in order to move forward. um I know for me, for many years, I um I always had this desire to want to start a business, but I felt like certain things had to be on track in order for me to start. I felt like I had to have all these tasks done before I can even enter into the business and entrepreneurship world. And as I'm going through this journey, I'm just like, it really don't work like that. You're really not going to have all the puzzle pieces right off the bat. You work with what you have. And as you continue to master and work through the things you have, then the other puzzle pieces will start to come in together and other things will start to make sense to you. And that's the whole part about living and learning and growing. It's really allowing yourself to master the things that you already have, and learning to even remove things that are unhealthy in your life, things that are no longer working for you, because we are forever changing people, okay? We are forever changing people. And I know for me, I used to always say, I'm working on myself. I'm working on myself. And being in a consistent mindset of like working on myself all the time, which is not a bad thing, but it's like I didn't really give myself room to breathe. I really didn't give myself room to reflect on how much growth that I did take in, or how much growth that I have exceeded in, because I'm always focused on, like, well, I gotta work, I gotta make sure I'm top notch in order to be accepted. And I know that's something we talked about in our growing episode. So in essence, it's all about allowing yourself to no longer be attached to that perfectionism type of mindset, to no longer being attached to being a perfectionist, because it's like, what are you trying to prove, and who are you trying to prove it to at the end of the day? Who are you trying to prove it to? Who are you trying to prove it to? And really be honest with yourself. Is it that inner child that is trying to prove something to your parent, or those kids that was picking on you in the second grade, or that boy in high school that didn't want you, and now you just like, hey, I'm leveled up now, see what I'm doing type deal? You missed out. Like, let's be real, because sometimes we be trying to flex. Okay, we be trying to flex. Don't act like you don't be trying to flex, because you probably be trying to flex. But we have to be honest and really get to the root and call it out, name it, like, so you can no longer be attached to that perfectionist mindset and just live your life, boo. Live. So that's all I really want to talk about today, to be honest. But just learning how to actually live in the grace. we this is basically to sum up all the episodes that we've talked about in the Show Yourself Grace series. And I do encourage you to go back and actually watch those episodes, because it really walks through the different emotions that we go through while we're learning and growing and receiving all these different corrections that we get in life, and just being at peace with yourself. Because when you learn how to actually be led by the grace, you are more at peace with yourself, with where you are and where you're going, and not more so focused on your past. Because something about being in a perfectionist mindset, it's like the fear of going backwards. But if you are already moving forward, why are you fearing going backwards? That's something that has to be asked on a daily basis. Remember, y'all, we going forward. We not going backwards. And the fact that you are making the strides right now, you're not the same person that you was on yesterday. It's a new day. It's a new time. It's a new breath of fresh air, new weather, new faces, new smiles that you see on a daily basis. I don't know. Sometimes you might see the same people every day, but it's a new day to live and really live. And it's such a blessing, especially now, to just like have the the opportunity to get up in the morning and just live, to just breathe, is a blessing in itself these days, because it's another opportunity for you to live, to get it right, to forgive yourself, forgive those that may have hurt you or harmed you, forgive and move on. So that wraps up today's episode. Once again, I highly encourage you to watch the previous videos, podcast episodes, and make sure you share with a friend, your cousin, your family members, your neighbor down the street, all that jazz. And as always, y'all, show yourself grace on this life journey. And this is a message from your girl, Coach Nequa T. I'm out.